Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's mySewnet Facebook and YouTube Live. Welcome, everyone. I want to welcome our visitors from all over, whether you're watching us live on YouTube or live on Facebook. And this will be recorded, so you may be seeing this recorded. And that's a great thing. We can record and we can come back and watch it later. So it makes our life easier. Welcome. My name is Kathy Fromme. I'm your educator today for the mySewnet Live. And today our topic is the cross stitcher program. I'm really excited about cross stitcher. Cross stitch is something I have done like since I was a pretty younger child, like probably maybe 8, 9, 10. My grandmother was very big into needleworking of all types, and she taught me to do like the stamped cross stitch and then later on the counted cross stitch. So when I found out we could do cross stitch by machine, and it was so much faster and easier, it just became one of my favorites over the years in our software. So once again, welcome to our mySewnet. Welcome to our watchers on both YouTube and Facebook today. I'm going to show you a picture of this. Is a hand stitched cross stitch, and it's very old. You can see it's got some stains and things, but it's very dear to my heart. Just a little sewing cross stitch, and this probably took weeks to make. And I show you that in comparison to this cross stitch. Well, I know that's a little washed out. Let me bring it back a little bit. There you go. This cross stitch probably took about, maybe 4.5 to 5 hours of stitching time on the machine. And this whole piece right up until the border here is all 100% cross stitches. So this entire piece is cross stitch. And when you compare that to that little sample I showed you in the beginning, well, there's nothing like that. So, all right, Amy, if you'll switch my screen to my other view, please. Great, thank you so much. And I want to thank Amy and Ryan, who are in our background as always. Their job is to keep me together here while I'm on live, and it's to keep you guys safe. They'll be watching out for those spammers and put information in the chat. So if you have questions, please use the chat. Hey, let us know where you're watching from today. It's always interesting to see, how many different states or countries that we get people coming in to our stream for. They'll pass on any questions to me that they can't answer. And as always, if there's something we need to research for you, we'll get back to you with that information. So, all right. So let's get down into working with the cross stitch program. What you see on my screen is our regular embroidery screen. So I just created this little picture with our pretty little cross stitch flowers and just some words. I'm going to go ahead and open the cross stitch program. So if I come back to file, we can see all of my programs here on screen. I'm going to scroll down and go to cross stitch. And do I want to save my changes? No, I don't need to save my changes. We'll be okay without those changes. And I will let my screen adjust for you. All right. So this is our cross stitch design wizard. When you start the cross stitch program, this will launch for you every time. There are many ways to work with the cross stitch program. You can use it as a wizard, where basically you input information to it and it generates the cross stitch for you. You can work with it from a picture. You can open a design, a cross stitch design that you're already working on. And you can also start a new cross stitch design with no picture. So you have a lot of options on the way you want to work with the cross stitcher program. So let me first take you through some of the tools and the how-tos on the cross stitch program. So I'm going to cancel this window for now. That way it'll be out of our way. And by the way, this is part 1 of 2 parts of cross stitch. Next month, I'll be back to give you part 2 of cross stitch. So if there's something today that you want to see in cross stitch that I don't cover by the end of the program, I will see if I can work it into part 2 next month. So, all right. So we have our screen, and it's, it's laid up very much like our embroidery screen. I love that about all the different components of mySewnet software, in that I can go from different programs. I can go from embroidery, stitch editor, digitizing, many of our other wizards, and still have a lot of similarities in the layout, so it doesn't look too foreign to you. This is our home ribbon, okay? And in the background here, you do see a texture that looks a lot like the traditional Aida cloth that's used for cross stitching. So Aida cloth is an even weave fabric that's very traditional for cross stitch. However, you can stitch your machine cross stitch designs on anything you like, including counted cross stitch fabric. I'm going to come into the tools on the home ribbon are very similar. They're your selection tools, your rotation tools. They don't do you a lot of good until you have something on it, though. So let's get something on our screen. If I move over to the Create tab here, I want to show you, this is where you can start your cross stitch process. Let's say you want to create something yourself on a blank canvas. This would be where you would start. And so that you can see better as I'm doing some placing, I'm going to just zoom a little bit of the area of my canvas up for you. I think that's a better view. Okay. So I'm in the Create tab at the top, and I get a default color, which is blue. Let's say I really don't want blue. I want to come over to my color palette and add a color. So this will bring up my standard color palette. I can bring in all of my thread ranges, or all the thread ranges. Mine is set to Robust and Anton 40 weight. Here are my quick colors, but here are my actual color numbers. So I could actually design in a particular thread palette. Let's try this pink. I think it shows up pretty well on screen. I'm going to add that as a color. There we go. So we have many types of crosses or stitches that make up cross stitch. Not just the cross stitches and the back stitches, which you might be familiar with if you're indeed a hand cross stitch crafter, but we have additional types of cross stitches. So whatever stitch type that you click on will turn that little like aqua turquoisey blue, and that's the tool that's turned on. And you can see on my mouse, I know it's pretty tiny, there's a little tiny symbol for that cross. When I click on any one of my boxes here, I am just laying down crosses. Okay, so let me just do a few more. Let me add a couple here and here and here and here. There we go. Whoops. Now, you know what? I was dragging my mouse around my keyboard without lifting, and I laid down some crosses I didn't intend to. Well, it's really easy to erase those. I have two options for erasing. The right click of my mouse is already set to be an eraser. So if I just hover over a stitch I want to remove, I can simply erase it with a right click. I also have an eraser tool that will turn my mouse pointer into an eraser. So if I am more comfortable using my left clicks to erase, I can do that. So your choice, whichever you would like to use, it's up to you. So there's an example of just a regular full cross. And we do have a quarter cross stitch. A quarter cross stitch is this tiny little stitch. I'm going to give you an even larger view. Just a little tiny. It only covers 1/4 of the square in cross stitch. It can be placed in any of the corners. I'm going to place it in 4 different corners there so you can see that it can be placed anywhere. It's a great little filler stitch. If we wanted to make this a little more round, we could plop a stitch in and do it that way. Now, you probably are familiar, being a hand cross stitcher, with you have the half cross forward, so that you can click in place. Now you can also draw in place. So if I'm holding my mouse button and just left dragging it across, I can place a whole bunch of those half cross forwards. And of course I have the half cross backward. You know, it works exactly the same way, except it goes backwards. Okay. So my screen's getting just a little full here. So let's just move down to a cleaner spot here and show you the mini cross. Much like the quarter cross stitch, mini cross lands in a corner, and it can be in any of the four corners. I think we need this corner yet, but it is actually a cross stitch. So it is a very small, tiny cross. So I'm going to check here for some questions. So question was, how do you set the right mouse button to be the eraser? It is the default setting. I do believe you can go in and change that. But I've always left my left button as the eraser. So it will start that way for you. Okay, good question. Now, beyond the little mini cross stitches for the corners, we have the half width cross stitch and the half height cross stitch. So those are all of your various cross stitch type stitches that are in the cross stitch. Gives you a nice variety, great way to look at things. And I want to back out of my zoom just a little bit. Oh, not that far. Let's come back in about there. Okay, so we also have back stitches. We have standard back stitch and freehand back stitch. And we have the ability to put French knots onto our design. So I'm going to show you that real quick. A French knot can be placed anywhere, whether it's like in the corner between the intersection of the even weave, or it can be placed in the middle of that square as well. So that can be a French knot. And as far as back stitching goes, I am going to add a new color. I'm going to put in something dark. Maybe I'll choose this darker Cabernet. So I'm going to select that as my color and show you back stitching. Okay, back stitching in the standard back stitch, it's going to, just like you see in this icon here, it's going to go around the perimeter of the square of the even weave or along the diagonal. Once again, I can left click and draw, so that I'm just free forming this right now. I can come down, I can come around, I can do an angle. Okay, anything like that, very similar to your hand cross stitch. In your free form, you get a little more flexibility, and you can decide where those points are going to be. Let me come over on this side of the screen here for you. So I can, do you see how it lets me decide where that point is going to land? Zoom up even larger for you, because I don't think I did a good job of showing you that. So I'm going to left click, and then I'm going to drag out that line. Now this would be a traditional stitch in the standard back stitch, but let's say I've got a line that I want to kind of fill out a bit. So I can choose the middle of that. I can cross over multiple crosses, and I don't have to stay exactly on the diagonal. I can like drop this anywhere I want, and it'll form the stitches. This can really enhance some of your cross stitch with this ability to do the freehand back stitch. Okay. Alrighty. Question is the cross stitcher the same on the Mac? Yes, it is. Tools will just be in a different area. So, all right, now I want to go into viewing. All right, because that's important. How you work is a personal thing. And I I typically usually like to do my cross stitch work in this view, which is the 3D view. I'm going to click on my ribbon at the top, the view, and you can see the shaded one is the 3D view. Maybe it's because I'm a hand counted cross stitch person, and that's why I like to see it in 3D view, but you don't have to. You can see it in 2D view. So in 2D view, you just see the threads. You don't see the fabric texture at all, okay? In the block view, everything is turned, if it's a cross, a full cross like these are right here, they're turned into solid blocks. Here, my little stitches, they're like pixels. That's probably the best way to describe it. It's a very pixelated look. So whatever view you choose to work in is, like I said, it's a personal choice here. Okay. All righty. So Cross Stitcher program is part of our platinum level software, whether that is a subscription version, or if you have the boxed perpetual version, you'll find the Cross Stitcher program in the platinum level of software. So, all right, let's take and get a clean screen here. And I'm just going to go home, and I think I'm just going to do like a select all visible and delete this for you. So we were just playing around learning what some of those tools are. There are, of course, more tools. We will see some more later, and we will see some things in next month's project. So now what I'd like to show you is how to bring in a cross stitch design. I'm going to go to, oops, file, new. I misclicked there, sorry guys. And I'm opening a new cross stitch window so I get my little design options back. And I want to load a picture for a new cross stitch design. Okay. So I'm going to bring, well, let me do a quick design first. So I'll choose quick design and do next. And here's where I get my options to load a picture, paste a picture. If I had it on my clipboard, I could paste it in. If I wanted to access it from a scanner or camera that was connected, I could do that as well. There's also a place here to create a new picture or to edit a picture. So I'm going to load a picture. And I am looking at some of the picture files that are part of our samples in our mySewnet software. Let me move this line over a bit so you can see my path here. So I'm in my, I had to create a folder for mySewnet samples that was quick and easy to access for today's demo, but they are housed inside the mySewnet folder. And if you don't have your samples downloaded, they are available to download on the website. I'm going to take you to the mySewnet website in a bit here. But we do have samples for cross stitch, digitizing, embroidery, and our plugin, our sketch, and our stitch editor. I really like these colorful pictures that are part of our embroidery pictures. So that's what I want to use for you today. And since it is finally spring where I live, I'm going to choose this robin here. And once I have that selected, I'm going to choose OK. And that brings my picture onto the screen. And I click next. This is the wizard part of the software. So depending on how you answer questions in the wizard will depend on what the software spits out for you. Here I can crop the picture. I can draw in if I need a tighter fit, if I don't want such a square picture, overall picture. I can bring it in a little bit. Don't want to cut off his little feet though. There we go. We can still see all of him. If, let's say, we had a picture that we scanned and the aspect ratio was kind of warped here, you can correct it with this little perspective correction tool. Today, you know what? Our phones and our scanners are so great about like making those corrections before we ever save our scans. I find I don't have to use that hardly at all anymore. Of course, I have zoom tools that I can zoom in on a picture if there was a lot of detail and I wanted to crop out a particular part of it. I could do that as well. So I'm just going to click on next. And here is my preview of my robin. Now it's showing my preview in that pixelated view, that just block view of my stitches. But I have some choices to make here on the side. This is all about the size of my stitch out. First off, let's talk about cross size. Those of you that have some familiarity with hand cross stitch know that there are different counts of the even weave fabrics used for that stitching. And they're called like 11 count, 14 count. There's a 16 linen count, an 18, and a very small little 22 count. So what does that mean if you're trying to balance something that you are familiar with? What does that mean as far as what size the cross is? Okay. Now I do have my measurements set in metric today. If you prefer to work in inches, by all means, you can go into your configure and change your settings to inches. I work best in millimeters for this type of thing, so I'm going to stick with my millimeters. And in the cross stitch reference guide, which I will show you where to find, it gives you a little chart. It's on page 78. So if you're a note taker and you want to know the equivalencies between the different cross stitch counts, they're on page 78 of the cross stitch guide. So 11 count is 2.3 millimeters. For instance, let's see, 14 count is 1.8, and it goes on down from there all the way down to the 22 count is 1.2. So I want you to think about, when you think about the size of the cross, that's going to be a diagonal measurement. I want you to think of a stitch length. If you are sewing something and you choose a stitch length of 2.0 on your machine, that's a fairly small stitch, right? If you choose a stitch that's 3.0, that's a little bit longer of a stitch. Do you have to stick with the stitches that equal the hand cross stitch? Absolutely not. There's just, it's not necessary. So I can make this cross, and this is a fairly small design. I can make this cross pretty much, you know, any size within the boundaries. Here my boundaries are the minimum of 1 millimeter and the maximum of 30 millimeters. So 30 millimeters here, it even gives me my equivalents. I'm not sure that you can see them on the pop-up here. The equivalent of 30 millimeters is over an inch, 1.181 inches. So that's a really long stitch. You can do whatever is your preference, okay? Next, below that, we have select hoop. Before I go there, we also have our width in crosses and our height in crosses. So all of this came up as a default setting with this 2.3. And at the bottom, it gives us the final measurements of this design, what it would be at these settings. So gives me an idea of how big this bird is going to stitch out. 92 millimeters by 70, almost 76. Again, if I hover just right, I should get the equivalencies here. It's not going to hover for me right now, though. So let me come back to selecting hoop size in just a moment. We'll finish off this wizard, and I'll do another one for you. Let's click on next. There we go. And here we have our colors that it picked up based on the picture. And I can reduce those colors. I could eliminate a color. If I don't want this background color here, I could remove it. I'm going to leave it in because I want to show you a nice way to remove that in a moment. I could change my threads up, all of the things that we can do in other parts of our software. I'm going to click on next. And here is the generation, my stitch preview generation. It's going to once again give me that size as well as the stitch count and the number of colors. I'm going to click on finish, and there I have filled my screen with my robin, my bird. Okay, so it can truly be that quick once you make those decisions about how you want to have your design come out. Now, I don't really want a solid background. I really didn't intend to put these crosses in the background here, and I want to get rid of them. And I'm fortunate that the bird is solid all the way around, so I can do this with one very, very click of my mouse. I'm going to move to the Create tab. I'm going to turn on my eraser so that it's working on my left mouse, but I'm going to do something called Cross Flood Fill. And this fills an area with crosses. Now you're probably saying, Kathy, you just said you want to get rid of crosses, not add crosses. Well, that's true. I do want to get rid of the crosses, but I can get rid of the crosses as long as I have my erase turned on, and I use this tool, this cross flood. It attaches a bucket to my mouse pointer, and wherever I'm at on my bucket, it's going to erase everything that's the same. So there I go. I told you, one quick click, and that whole background is gone. Wasn't that easy? So I'm going to turn off my eraser for safety right now and just come back to a regular full cross. And let me check for any questions here. Let's see. So is there a way, the question is there a way for the thread colors to come in a specific thread brand? So yes, it's all how you have your configure set in your software. If I take a moment and come back to this, let me go back to home screen and go into configure. Takes just a minute for that to pop up. There we go. And in my import tab, here is where you can choose your import range. Okay. Now it's just showing me some of mine because of the way I have mine set to only show my thread ranges. But here are all of your settings for, for your configure. Okay. So we're just going to cancel out of there and minimize that window and come back to our little robin here. So what do you think? Pretty easy, right? This was just a picture. Now, like in digitizing, I know many of you have watched our educators do programs on digitizing. You get out of the software what you put into the software. So if your artwork or your picture is not crisp and clear, you may not get as nice of a result. As you see here, I'm using one of the built-in pictures, so I get a really good result. I want to zoom up here on the legs so you can see that I am showing the picture behind the leg. So you can see the stitch on top because I'm in 3D view, and here is the artwork essentially behind that. Now, if I go to my view tab, I can reduce the intensity of that picture by just sliding this little slider down, and it'll get fainter. So it's not as easy to see there. Oops. I have a wild mouse there. Oh, and I just dropped a cross stitch where I don't want one. Well, that'll be okay. Let me right click it and it'll go away. So you can alter that view of that picture behind it. You can even totally shadow it out or remove it if you don't want it. So let's just go all the way. So now we have a better idea of what we're seeing. That this is what our stitch out will look like. Of course, if we go home in our home tab, now we're still in the cross stitch program. I can go to Design Player, and in Design Player, I can see I can see my bird here. I know it's a little faint. There we go. I'll zoom up a little bit for you. And as it plays, it will do its stitching, and you can see how it stitches. So I love that these features, cross all of our different programming. So let that play for you for just a second here. All right. So I'm going to cancel that and come back here. Now, I noticed that my bird legs are pretty spindly, and granted, birds are a miracle animal. I don't know how they can walk around on such tiny little legs, but they can. I'm going to bring my picture back and show you what you might want to do some enhancements. We have allowed the software to do our work for us, but that doesn't mean we can't use some of the tools manually. So let me zoom in on the legs. I'm going to work on this left leg mostly. Whoa, here we go. All right, and you can see that the solid color, that's part of the picture here. Let me go back to create. I have some stitches I could use to kind of fill that corner in and make it more smooth. But I want to make sure I fill in those stitches with the same color. So I'm just going to look over at my color palette, and when I hover over a color, the right color, it'll turn like a yellow color. So color number 4, I want to click on, and now all the crosses I add will be in that color here. I could have also come in to the color palette, and it shows me each of the blocks here. It does exactly the same thing. It hovers when you hover over it, you can choose it. So I just find it easier to go to the design panel. I guess it's my habit, but you've got 2 ways you can do it. So let's fill in this block here with maybe this half width cross stitch. All right. And I'm going to do a half width cross stitch here as well, and one more here. Okay. And I think I might want a little tiny one of those mini crosses right in this corner. So I'll just simply switch, and my color stays the same as long as I haven't changed the color. So I can use all the cross stitch tools, all the stitch tools rather, without changing the color. I don't have to change the color each and every time. Okay. So you can see how, let me zoom back out. That gives just a little bit more stability to this bird's leg. So, all right, looks like we're good on questions at the moment. Another area that you might want to do a little enhancement on this bird is his nose. So when I'm zoomed up this far and I remove that picture, his nose doesn't have a little point on it anymore. Well, I don't really like that, so I'm gonna help that out. We're gonna give this bird a better nose. So again, Create tab has the stitches on it, and I think this is a great place to put one of these half height crosses right here. I might want to place it up higher in the higher parts, okay? Or I could do something maybe even better. I got a great idea. Let's try some freehand back stitching right here. I'm going to keep this in a contrast color so that you can see it, but I can always change it later. And I'm just going to freehand draw. You know what? There, it's showing up for you here and here. And then I will fill in this little corner here with a mini cross. And that might be too much. Let me zoom out and see if I like it. Now, granted, it's not black, but I knew you wouldn't be able to see the black on top of the black artwork. I think that's okay for our bird. And then I can come in and I can change those colors for him. So those are some ways that you can do some enhancements for just something, easy, fast and easy that you've brought in. Alrighty, now let me show you. I promised to show you where to find the cross stitch guide. I think it's always important. We do have help menus, of course, right built in with the with each of our ribbons. However, you know, some of you I know are like me and you still like paper, right? Or at least you like to be able to read something, even if you don't print it. So I will switch over to right here. Okay, great. It's worked. I'm at the mySewnet.com website. So this is the homepage of the website. And to find my cross stitch guide, I want to go to my dashboard. And right on the side of my dashboard, here are all of your choices here. If I go to my downloads and updates, I come to this screen in which this is where you would have downloaded your software. And when you got your software, I'll show you right here are those sample files. All right. So if you are missing your sample files, come here and download them. They are an optional download. Also, there's an Explorer plugin for Windows if you are looking for the way to view your little thumbnails in the Explorer. We have some extended background sets. And if you are using a embroidery machine with a USB driver with a direct connection cable, you would want this third download as well. If you are working on Mac, we can flip over to the Mac side, and here we have our available downloads for the Mac. Now, below all of our software downloads, so here's the top of that page. We're just going to scroll a little bit further, and under software help, we have our quick start guide, our help and guides, and then inspiration and education. We want to go to help and guides. And here is all of our help and guides for our software. So find cross stitcher. I can either view it online or I can look at the document. Now I am in the Mac tab, but it gave me the Windows. So the directions are the same for both. So I'm not sure if that's something on our part. I will ask our software team to just verify that is how it should be. So I'll verify that for you guys. The file that downloads is a PDF, so it can be saved to your computer or tablet. You can just go to the website and view it, your choice. But it is a very handy, and of course it's going to be slow to load for me here. There we go. Some pages here. So I think I will take you to page, excuse me, page 78. There we go. Where I told you, crazy mouse. Here's that little chart right here that shows you what your comparison is between the hand even weave fabrics and the cross stitch sides. So that's something that is very important. And then something I wanted to share with you that's also a choice and preferences, I'll come back and show you where, is the thread count. This is a hard one to just like show you a sample of. This illustration is far better. But when we do our crosses, we can choose how many threads. Now, in hand cross stitch, you're typically using a 6-strand embroidery floss, and you separate out the number of strands. Typically, your hand pattern is going to give you the instructions. You know, you use a single thread, a double thread, a triple thread, and typically the larger the thread count of your crosses. So if you're using that 11 count, you might use more strands of floss to give it a heavier look. Okay. Or there might be areas of a design that you want to give heavier. You have that same flexibility in our software. So we can do a single thread, meaning one thread each direction, a double thread, whoa, that was crazy with my mouse, 2 threads in both directions, or 3 threads in both directions. Now you can also change the direction of that top stitch. So again, you can keep it traditional as a hand stitcher might and keep your first stitch, your bottom left to upper right is your understitch at the bottom, and the top thread is going from the lower right to the upper left. That's traditional in hand stitching. You can change it in hand stitching. You can change it in the machine. You may want to change the direction of your thread to give off a different reflection or give a different look. So you have the ability to make all kinds of changes. So, you know, our cross stitch is beautiful cross stitch because you have so many options. Let me see. I wanted to make sure. Was there anything else? There's a lot in the manual, but there was one other page I thought might provide you with a good explanation, and that's page 16. Oops, page 16. 16. Oh. Okay, there we go. And let's further down. Here's a book explanation of those stitch types that I showed you on the screen. I think the screen's pretty good, but I wanted you to know that that information is in the book as well, along with the back stitching. So real early on in the manual. So, all right, I'm going to flip back to my screen and check for some questions. Here's my robin. So question is, can you change the number of threads within a color chain, within a color choice? I don't see why not. I personally not tried that, but let's see here. Let's go to home. It might have stumped me here. You may want to do, for creation purposes, a separate color and then change that color once you're on the embroidery side. I think that might work better. So here I am in design properties. So I'm sorry, I should have told you where I went. I'm back in the home ribbon, clicking on my design properties for this design. And you can see the cross stitch size that was used and the design area. Here are my thread counts, single, double, triple. You even have 8 and 10 and thread count, 8, 10, and 12 threads. So you can get very dense with your threads, or, you know, maybe that you're using a very lightweight thread. Maybe you're using a 60 weight thread, and so you can add more layers to it. If you're using a heavier thread, like maybe one of those 30 weight cotton embroidery threads, you might want to stick with the single or the double. So let me try a triple stitch here. And then here's my back stitch. I have choices here in my back stitch as well. Whoops. There we go. And then the top thread direction. These are all where you make those choices. So I'm going to keep that as the same and just click OK. And I will pick, I'll pick this dark color, this darker gray for the wing. I'm just going to put some stitches now that I have the stitches changed here. The stitches won't look different as a representation on the screen in the 3D mode. Let's go to the 2D mode. And let me zoom up here. They really look about the same, which is what the manual tells you. It'll look the same. If we hop over to Design Player, I'm sorry, it just doesn't give you a real good view as to that difference. So I think the proper answer to the question is no, you're not going to make, I guess you could switch back and forth to your properties, because we can always go back to design properties and change this back to single and do it that way within the same color. But if you wanted to know visually which stitches you did the heavier count, I would do a different color that you can code, and then you can change it when you go over to the embroidery screen afterwards. I think that makes more sense. Another question, and I love this question. If you set the cross size to match the weave of the fabric, so let's say you're going to stitch on an actual cross stitch fabric here, how do you get it to actually stitch in the holes of the weave during the stitch out? Well, depending on what machine you have and what positioning tools you have, it's all about that, hooping very straight and using your design positioning to get your design. So with Who's Front of Viking and FOF, we have our exact positioning and design positioning tools we can use. Amy, if you want to switch me back just to a full screen of me for a moment, I can hold up this sample, which is done on the, you can see if I put it at an angle there. This is done on the actual cross stitch fabric. And it was all about getting this lined up and keeping it on the straight. It's not, I mean, I'm sure there's a point at which my weave is out of alignment a little bit, but it's pretty darn straight. And it looks pretty cool done on the actual cross stitch even weave cloth. Okay. So speaking of the stitch out process, when you do stitch out anything that's heavy and dense, like cross stitch or photo stitch, picture stitch, the same thing. It's all about making sure you've prepped your fabric well and stabilized it well. So I even have done this when I hand cross stitched. I've taken the even weave fabric and wet it and then blocked it. You know what? It's an old school thing that my grandmother taught me to do. I'm very grateful that I learned so many skills from her, but I would block this with straight pins on a padded surface so that it would straighten the grain out. So you can, like, you know, pull on the grain to get things back in alignment and let it dry. While it's pinned down, then you can press it. And I even go so far as to starch fabrics, whether that's using, you know, regular starch or best pressed, or even some of the liquid stabilizers, Terreal Magic, or a solution of taking your water soluble stabilizers and mixing it with a little warm water, painting it on your fabric. That makes it very stiff as well. So for instance, this cross stitch, this is from a book. This is a hand cross stitch design that I hand cross stitched a long time ago for a friend's wedding, and then I redid it. This is the machine version that's not done by hand, but it's a type of cross stitch where, like, the main pictures is very much in a relief. So all of this area where the dove and the roses and the ribbon are, there's no stitches there. So it's a particular type of style of cross stitch that I use 2 layers. Yes, 2 layers. Well, I can't separate them very well. There we go. 2 layers of a nice non-woven cutaway stabilizer. Almost lost that one. And on my farm scene, whoops, got it upside down. There we go. On my farm scene, you can see inside the zipper just how dense that is. But there is stabilizer. I trimmed it way back because I also have piping in this seam, and it was very bulky. I've been known to use a layer of cutaway in my hoop, and then add a single layer of a tearaway under my hoop. So I do find, because your needle is going up and down many, many times for cross stitch, that you want a lot of stabilization and you want to hoop your fabric if at all possible. I think you get a better result. Things don't shift as much. Okay. Now I wanted to show you our 3D project today. And our 3D project for cross stitch for Mother's Day. This can make a really nice little gift. Purchase, like, this is just a shadow box. Okay. Get them at any of your big box craft stores or I'm sure you can buy them online as well. And take that shadow box apart. All right. And let me show you my elements here of my design. So I first stitched my cross stitch design on a piece of fabric. So it's behind, there's glass in here, okay? And I have another layer of tulle on top. But my design, here's just a design, not a cross stitch design, but you can do this with anything that's already cut to fit in a shadow box, okay? And I would lay that in my shadow box. And then on top, I wanted dimension. So I took a piece of tulle and I prepared the tulle with a stiffener. So I used some Aqua Magic on my tulle. And then I made a sandwich for my hoop. So I have 2 layers of Aqua Magic and a layer of my tulle. You can see this little bit here that's been stiffened with liquid Aqua Magic. And then I further basted it in the hoop. So here's just a sample of basting in the hoop. And I created a grid pattern for this one. Here I created the word mom and stitched it on my tulle. Once my stitching was done, I rinsed out all the extra Aqua Magic. Here I have a little butterfly. And I could have put this over top of my glass. Now, the 2 projects don't really go together because I was just experimenting with this with my cross hatching. By the way, I did the cross hatching in the quilt block wizard, and I would make it much more open work. This was designed to go with something a much brighter color underneath, whereas my mom was a shadow box gift for Mother's Day, and I just used a high contrast color for the embroidery on the mom. Laid the tulle on top of the glass, used a little Scotch tape on the back side of the glass around the back of it to hold it in place. And while I put the back in the shadow box. So that is a quick and easy 3D gift that you can make. And, you know, any mom would appreciate something handmade from their kids or from their grandkids, or, you know, anyone special. You can do it for, you know, something for Mother's Day, Father's Day, whether it's for an aunt and uncle, anything along those lines, you can do some really quick gifts for. So let's just double check our questions again. Okay. Did I back the Aida cloth with anything? Yes, absolutely. It's stiff to begin with, which is great. Once I have it straight, then I, again, use a cutaway. All right. I'm always going to use a cutaway first. That's going to stay with the cross stitch to give it support. And then depending on if it's a softer fabric, I would put a tearaway, maybe slip that under my hoop rather than hooping the Aida and the cutaway and the tearaway. I usually float tearaway under a cutaway. Okay. Alrighty, I think I have a few more minutes to show you a few more things. So Amy, if you'll switch my view back so we can see our software, that would be fabulous. Thank you. It's so great to have people in the background to help us out. I wanted to take a minute to show you. Let's just make a new screen here. New window. That you don't always have to just go by as far as your sizing goes, you have a lot of options to do for your size. So let's do the load picture again. You would use the load existing cross stitch design. Let's say that you wanted to work on that robin some more. I would save it, and there is a unique file called a KRZ file format. Let me step back one moment. I have so much I want to share with you. If we wanted to save this robin and come back and work on it later, I would either use the save as here or this the quick tools, and you can see that it's a cross stitcher file format, and I would call this I'll call this demo demo bird, just to distinguish it. And then I could open that demo bird back up in my cross stitch window. So if I go to File and New, and provided I save that where I believe I saved it, meaning I can find it quickly for you, load existing cross stitch design and load design. Let my computer think a moment. I put a file on my desktop to make life easy. And let me find the right, there's the robin. I want to find my demo bird because this is the one I did right now for you. And let that open. You can see the file extension there is KRZ. And it just seems to be taking, there we go. I don't think I clicked hard enough. And this is the preview of that file. Click on finish and it reloads it for you. So I wanted you to see that it would be easy to reload that. However, sometimes we want to work within confinement of size of an embroidery hoop, let's say. So I want to choose load picture and pick a picture. And let's choose, let's choose this. Let's see, the duck won't show up well on screen. Let's choose the toucan. There we go. I think that'll show up well for you. I'm just going to plop right through all of the basics. Here is where I want to determine what size hoop I'm going to use. Maybe, I only have so many hoops to use, and I want to use a hoop that I have. So I want to choose my 240 by 150, and I want it to go in the natural position, the direction it goes onto my machine. So it's portrait mode, and then go ahead and click finish. So now my design is here for that size cross. Okay. You can also, let me show you another way to control the size of a design. And we will, let's do a quick cross and load. Oh, my computer is like flashing. Let's try this parrot just for some variety here, and click next. And again, scroll through these. And here I can start with the hoop size. Okay, so I have the 240 by 150 hoop selected. And because my picture is very square to begin with, it's going to be about 149 millimeters wide, almost as wide as that hoop. But let's say I really don't want it that wide. How I can determine my size here as well. Oops, sorry, I'm in the wrong place. Let's try 130. Oh, nope, I'm sorry, I'm in the wrong screen for that one. We can change our cross width and height. So if I only wanted it 50 crosses across, that's going to change my overall size here to 115 by 115. I can still use that bigger hoop, but I actually could drop that to a smaller hoop. So there's a number of different ways to manipulate the sizing of your design. Next month, I'm going to show you a hand chart, how to bring a hand chart into the software, and we'll go into more detail on the sizing with that little exercise. So let me just tap through and double check to see if there is any questions while we finish our little parrot up here. Here we go. And once again, just a quick reminder how easy it is to get rid of that background since I didn't do it ahead of time. There we go. And our background is done. Now, if I want to see what this cross stitch looks like in the embroidery mode, because maybe I want to go in and add, you know, some words or a shape or something to it. I can go to my home tab and copy the embroidery. Now I would still, I'm a big believer of saving everything as you go, but I just copied it for sake of time. And I'm going to open up a regular embroidery window, and you see my parrot, he came across with me, and I just have to paste him in place. And I will zoom up so you can see him in embroidery mode. So when you first joined, if you first joined the live at the top of the hour, I had a little welcome screen with my pretty flowers that are in my shadow box on it that said, you know, welcome to mySewnet cross stitcher. And that's how I did that. I just added my letters here within my embroidery. So, all right, guys. Well, I'm going to double check once more for questions. And it looks like we're good right now with questions. If you have any that we didn't answer, we will come back in and answer those. And I want to thank everyone for watching us live today on whatever media you chose, Facebook or YouTube. Thank you so much. And our next live for mySewnet is Wednesday, May 8th at 3 o'clock Eastern Time, 2 p.m. Central Time. I'll be back to show you some things with using pattern fill with cross stitch, which is exciting. You can use a built-in pattern fill or make your own. I'm also going to show you about using a hand cross stitch chart in the software. And the third thing I'm planning to show you is multiply in the cross stitcher. So there's a really cool multiple tool that we can use. If you come up with another suggestion, please put it in the comments. And when I take a look at those, I'll see if I can add your question or technique to my next live. Thanks everyone for watching. Have a great day.